Om Tat Sat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Yatas Sarvani Bhutani Pratibhanti Sthitani Che Itrayavo Apasmam Yanti Tasmai Satyatmane Namaha Jnata Jnanam Tatha Jneyam Drashta Darshanatrisya Bhu Karta Hetu Kriya Yasmat Tasmai Jnanaptatmane Namaha Spuranti Sikara Yasmad Anandasya Ambare Avano Sarvesham Jivanam Tasmai Brahmanandatmane Namaha. I go down to that supreme reality. Now, Vasishtha continued, but before that, the last para of what we did in the morning, before we continue. The cosmic Jiva utters Om and by pure will creates the various objects. Just as the creator Brahma was willed into being, even so is a worm brought into being. The distinction is illusory. In truth, there is no creation and no division at all between the worm and the Brahma. In truth. It appears, but it is not so. Now, this is very interesting that the word Om has been used here. The cosmic Jiva utters Om and by pure will creates the various objects. In all the Upanishads it has been said that Om, the Pranava, is the link between, the bridge between this and that, which means between appearance and reality, between this world and the next, between that which is and from where it comes. Om is the link. So just as the Jiva, by pure will and chanting of Om or uttering Om, creates the universe, you can also, being, if you are pure Jivas, utter the Pranava Om and create what you want. With that it ends, and Vasishtha continues. In connection with this Rama, there is an ancient legend which I shall now narrate to you. When he says legend, it means from the Puranas, ancient stories. There once lived to the north of the Himalaya mountain a terrible demoness known as Karkati. She was huge and dreadful to look at. This demoness could not get enough to eat, and she was always hungry. She thought, if only I can eat all the people living in Jambudvipa continent in one meal, then my hunger will disappear. Let me engage myself in tapasya, in penance, for through penance is attained that which is otherwise difficult to obtain. For anything you want to get, you need to sacrifice something, right? Nothing comes for free. Nothing comes for free. So if you want something which looks so impossible, then kathor tapasya is necessary. Serious penance is necessary. And her thought is almost impossible, so that she can eat all the living beings on Jambudvipa, human beings. Now this is not such an easy task. I will do tapasya. How long then? Karkati then went up on the snow peaks and commenced her tapasya. All people who want to do tapasya usually go up to the snow peaks. In course of time, she had grown so thin that it looked as if she was a skeleton clad in transparent skin. I am beginning to feel like Karkati. No, not the first part. Drink like skeleton clad in transparent skin. After 1,000 years had passed, so imagine, she did tapasya for 1,000 years, so we are not talking about this yoga. And 1,000 years passed, and the creator Brahma appeared before her, pleased with her penance. If you read the Puranas, you will see it is this Brahma that creates all the mischief. Very easy to give boons. And because Brahma is supposed to be the creator, we have no temple for Brahma except in one place. Where is that? Sukra. By some reason they had one there, but there is no temple for Brahma. Why? Because we put all of us in misery. And he is easy to be, all the asuras, they go and do tapasya. Brahma appears and says, okay, here, take this. So, Brahma, what happened to Brahma here, appeared before her, pleased with her tapasya. She bowed to him mentally. And she thought, I shall request Brahma that I become a living steel pin. Not pin actually, a needle, like a needle. Not dead needle, but a living needle, but as strong as a needle, made of steel. Why? What she wanted to do is interesting. She thought, I shall request that I should become a living steel needle. What is a needle called? Suchi. She wanted to become Suchika. And that Suchika should be an embodiment of disease, all diseases. With this boon, I shall simultaneously enter the hearts of all beings and fulfill my desire and appease my hunger. And Brahma said to her, I am pleased with your penance. Ask a boon of your choice. She expressed her wish. Brahma said, so be it. Although you must be wondering why. So be it. You shall also be Vishuchika. That means subtle Suchi. Vishuchika. Suchi, Vishuchika. Remaining a subtle thing, you will inflict pain on all those who eat the wrong food and indulge in wrong living by entering their heart. So now it's become common. She enters many hearts. Wrong food and wrong living. This Suchika still enters and stops the heart. I'm sure Dr. Jayakumar must be somewhere here. Immediately, O Rama, the demoness with a mountainous body began to shrink and shrink till she gradually became the size of a needle. She became so subtle that her existence could only be imagined. That's more micro. She was constantly followed by her other form, known as Vishuchika. Vishuchika also followed this Suchika. And what is Vishuchika? Ayurveda, cholera. Though she was extremely subtle and unseen, her demonical mentality underwent no change at all. She was the same demon, reduced from big to small, dependent upon the life force of others. She was devoted to her own work. Why? She had gained the boon of a choice, but she could not fulfill her desire to eat all the beings in Jambudvipa. That is because She was of the size of a needle. How can she eat all the people in Jambudvipa? How strange. The deluded ones, says Vasishtha, how strange, the deluded ones do not have foresight because they are deluded. The selfish person's violent efforts to gain his selfish ends often leads to other results. Even as a person is unable to see his face, when he runs to the mirror puffing and panting, because his own breath mists the mirror. Suchika entered into the physical bodies of people who on account of previous illness had been greatly debilitated or had become obese and transformed herself into cholera. Suchika. Suchika entered into the heart of even a healthy and intelligent person and perverted the intellect. Some cases, however, she left that person when the latter underwent a healing treatment either with the aid of mantras or with drugs. Tomorrow onwards we need a small light here because this light, some small light is kept somewhere, it will be nice. Now Suchika, Vasishtha continued. Suchika had her numerous hiding places. Among them where did Suchika hide? Numerous places. Among them were dust and dirt on the ground, unclean fingers, threads in a cloth, within one's body in the muscles, dirty skin covered with dust, unclean furrows on the palms and other parts of the body due to senility, places where flies abound, in a lusterless body, in places full of decaying leaves, in places devoid of healthy trees, in people of filthy dress, people of unhealthy habits, in tree stumps caused by deforestation in which flies breed, in puddles of stagnant water, in polluted water, in open sewers running in the middle of the road, in rest houses used by travelers, and in those cities where there are many animals like elephants, dogs, horses, etc. This is where she hid. Many places to hide. Unharmed and so when you go to such places and such situations, watch out. This Suchika is hiding there. Also keep your hands, feet clean. Don't eat food without washing your hands, Suchika will enter. And so on. Don't keep sewers open, Suchika is going there. Anyway, unharmed and unprovoked by others, Suchika works for the destruction and death of others. Known also as Jiva Suchika, she moves in all beings as the life force with the help of prana and apana, subjecting the jiva to sorrow by causing terribly sharp pain like gout, rheumatism, which makes one lose his mind. She enters into the feet like a needle and drinks blood. Like all wicked people, she rejoices in others' sorrows. As Vasishtha was saying this, the sun went down. Another day came to an end. The assembly adjourned for prayers. The next day Vasishtha continued. After living in this manner for a long time, the demoness Karkati was thoroughly disillusioned and repented her foolish desire to devour people, which entailed severe penance for 1,000 years and the degraded existence as a needle and a cholera virus. She thus bewailed her own self-inflicted misfortune. Now she is saying, what did I do? Why did I become like this? Common among human beings also. Right? I went off abroad thinking that side is so nice and beautiful. Now they are handcuffing me and bringing me back to here. Please forgive my accent and the way I speak, because it may be different from Gram. Because here I am using the Hindi tune into English. So, after living in this manner for a long, long time, the demoness Karkati was thoroughly disillusioned and repented her foolish desire to devour people, which entailed severe penance for 1,000 years and the degraded existence as a result, as the needle and cholera virus. She thus bewailed her own self-inflicted misfortune. She said to herself, "Alas, where is my mountainous body? And where is the form of a needle? Alas, I am lost. I have surely lost my mind and my senses." The mind that is heading towards calamity, first creates delusion and wickedness. And these themselves later expand into misfortune and sorrow. I am never free, ever at the mercy of others. I am in the hands of others and do what they make me to do. I desire to appease the goblin of a desire, to eat everybody. But that has led to a remedy worse than the disease, and a greater goblin has arisen. Surely I am a brainless fool. Hence I threw away such a great and gigantic body and deliberately chose the despisable body of a virus or a needle. So she lamented. At once, Karkati abandoned all wish to eat living beings and went to the Himalayas again. If you go to the Himalayas, watch out. Might be lurking around somewhere. Standing on one foot, she began her penance. Karkati's whole being became purified by this tapasya, and she gained the highest wisdom. The energy of her penance set the Himalaya on fire, as it were. Now what happens? Indra cannot bear this. So Indra, the king of heaven, learned from the sage Narada of Karkati's unprecedented undertaking. Narada knows everything that is happening in all parts of the world, because his job is to travel with a veena. If you read the Puranas, wherever there has to be some trouble, first Narada comes. Narayana, Narayana, and then says, "Hey, you heard? No? This is what it is." So that Narada saw this one there doing tapasya. And he went and told Indra, the Lord of heaven, "Now you have to be careful. Here is someone, the Himalayas has been set on fire by tapasya." Indra then commissioned Vayu, the wind god, to find out the exact spot where Suchika dwelt. Again, wind can go anywhere. In the Himalaya, Vayu saw the ascetic Suchika standing like another peak of the mountain. Huge. She had become almost dried up, but when Vayu entered her mouth, she threw it out again. She didn't even allow Vayu to enter. She had withdrawn her life force to the crown of her head and stood as a perfect yogini. Vayu forthwith returned to heaven and reported to Indra. Whereupon Indra went to Brahma, and in answer to his prayer, Brahma went to see Suchika engaged in tapasya. In the meantime, Suchika had become totally pure by her penance. She had gained direct knowledge of the supreme causeless cause of all by her own examination of the intelligence within her. Surely direct inquiry into all the moments of thought in one's own consciousness is the supreme guru or preceptor of Rama and no one else. Brahma said to her, ask a boon. She reflected within herself. I have reached the realization of the Absolute, she said. What will I do with your boons? Brahma said, the eternal world order cannot be set aside. O Tapasvi, and it decrees that you should regain your previous body, live happily for a long time and then attain liberation. Can't be done, you can't overrule this like that. You will live an enlightened life, afflicting only the wicked and the sinful and causing the least harm, that too only to appease your natural hunger. So Suchika accepted what Brahma had said, and soon her needle body again grew into a mountainous body. Karkati regained her former demonical form. She experienced hunger for as long as the body lasts. It is the subject to its own physical laws, including hunger and thirst. And she heard an aerial voice saying, "O Karkati, approach ignorant and deluded people and awaken wisdom in them." This indeed is the only mission of enlightened beings. Since you are now enlightened, your job now is to go and approach ignorant and deluded people and awaken wisdom in them. This indeed is the only mission of enlightened beings. One whom you thus endeavor to enlighten, but who fails to awake to truth, you can eat. It may be a story, but it happens. You shall incur no sin by devouring such an ignorant person. So all ignorant persons who don't listen are eaten by this demoness. Watch out. Hearing this, Karkati entered a dense forest where hill tribes and hunters dwelt. She went into the tribal area. In that region there was a king known as Vikram. As was his custom, this king, along with his ministers, went out into the dense darkness of the night to protect his subjects by subduing robbers and dacoits. Karkati saw these two men. She reflected, surely these two men have come here to appease my hunger. They are ignorant and therefore a burden on this earth. Such ignorant people suffer here and hereafter. Suffering is only mission in their life, it looks like. Death unto them is a welcome release from such suffering. And it is possible that after death they will awake and seek their salvation. How? Were you creeping like Karkati, with some suchi in your hand? Shock of my life, Now, what happened now? No, they can't see, Radha. Why, you can't hear? Okay. One side is another side. Now she said, let me eat them because they are a burden on this earth. Such ignorant people suffer here and hereafter. Suffering is the only mission in their life. Death unto them is a welcome release from such suffering. Maybe after death they will wake up into salvation. Whoever wishes to enjoy unalloyed happiness, whoever wishes to enjoy unalloyed happiness, fame and long life, should by all means honor and worship good men by giving them all that they might have wished to have. Let me therefore test their wisdom. If they are wise, I shall not harm them. Wise men are indeed great benefactors of humanity. Now you should imagine it's in the dark forest, tribal area, where usually jackals howl, and huge mountain like lady Karkati is standing there. Karkati shouted, "Hey, you two little worms roaming this dense forest, who are you? Tell me quick or else I'll eat you up." King and the minister beheld her dreadful form, and without being perturbed in the least, the minister said to her, "O Demoness, why are you so angry? To seek food is natural to all living beings, and in performing one's natural functions, one need not be bad-tempered. You could have said, 'Hey, who are you? Why are you calling us worms?' and things like that. Even selfish ends are gained by the wise by appropriate means and appropriate behavior or action after they give up anger and mental agitation and resort to equanimity and a clear mind. We have seen thousands of insects like you. Reverse. We have seen thousands of insects like you and have dealt justly with them. For it is the duty of a king to punish the wicked and protect the good. Give up your anger and achieve your end by resorting to tranquility. Ask us gently. Such indeed is appropriate conduct. Whether one is able to achieve one's ambition or not, one should remain peaceful. Ask of us, what will you have? We have never turned a beggar away empty-handed. Ask, but ask gently. Karkati greatly admired the courage and wisdom of the two men. She thought, let me utilize this opportunity to clear the doubts that are in my mind, for he is surely a fool who, having the company of the wise, neglects to clear doubts. So she said to them, if you two are men not possessed of self-knowledge, then in accordance with my inherent nature, I shall eat you both. In order to determine this, I shall ask you some questions. So give me the right answers. If not, first question, O King, what is it that is one and yet is many, in which millions of universes merge? What is that? What is it that is pure space, though it appears to be not? What is it that is in me, in you, and that is you and in me? What is it that moves yet does not move? What is it that is, what is it that is a rock, though conscious? And what plays wonderful tricks in empty space? What is it that is not the sun and the moon and the fire and eternally shines? What is that atom that seems to be far and yet is so near? What is it that is of the nature of consciousness and yet is not knowable? What is it that is all and yet is not any of these? What is it that is all and yet is not any of these? What is it that, though it is your very self, the self of all, is veiled by ignorance and is regained after many lifetimes of instant and persistent effort? What is it that is atomic and yet contains a mountain within it, that transforms the three worlds into a blade of grass? What is it that, ever renouncing its atomic nature, appears to be bigger than the biggest mountain? What is that atom in which the entire universe rests like a seed during cosmic dissolution? What is it that is responsible for the function of all the elements in the universe? Though it seems to be doing nothing at all. All of what are the seer, the seen and the sight? What is it that veils and reveals the threefold manifestation? In what is apparent threefold division of time established, past, present and future? What is it that comes into manifestation, then vanishes alternately? Do we have a cooler fitted here? Everybody is with the paper. Not working, is it? Switched off. Why? Because of the noise? So what shall we do? I see people like, even I am going to. Little bit of tapasya, okay, sorry. Especially people who came from Switzerland. So she asked all these questions and said, answer them. If you don't, you know what will happen. I'll eat you up. Now that's a terrible threat, right? Either you answer or you invent answers. The minister replied, I shall surely answer your question. O lady, for that to which all your questions refer is simply one, the Supreme Self. That Self is subtler than even space. I said fan and they put off the lights. The Self is subtler than even space, since it has no name and cannot be described, and neither the mind nor the senses can reach it or comprehend it. It is pure consciousness. The entire universe exists in that consciousness that is as small as an atom, even as a tree exists within the seed. But then the universe exists as consciousness and does not exist as the universe. That consciousness exists, however, because such is the experience of all, and it alone is the self of all, and there is nothing else. Then he continues the entire Upanishadic dialogue. That the self is subtler than the subtlest, and so on and so on. It has no name and cannot be described. Neither the mind nor the senses can reach it, and so on. It is not a void, for it is not nothingness. It is the self of all. It is the very self of one who says it is, and of one who says it is not. Even if a person says that self does not exist, he is saying that because the self is there. And so on. Now this is what we have already. Karkati said, I am delighted with your minister's answers, okay. Now I would like to hear your answer. The minister has answered all this Vedanta, what about you? The king said, your questions, O noble lady, relate to the eternal Brahman, which is pure existence. It is known when the mind stuff is rid of all movements of thought. The extension and withdrawal of its manifestation is popularly regarded as creation and dissolution of the universe. It is expressed in silence when the known comes to an end, freedom from the known. For it is beyond all expression. It is the extremely subtle middle between the two extremes. And that middle itself has two sides. As the diversity of this universe, it seems to be divided in itself, but it is not divided. When this Brahman wishes, wind comes into being. But that wind is nothing but pure consciousness. similarly sound, similarly everything else. By its omnipotence, all this appears to be. Now this self cannot be attained by 100 ways and means. Yet, when it is attained, nothing has been attained. It is the Supreme Self, and yet it looks like nothing. And so on. The king continued, in the twinkling of an eye, this infinite consciousness experiences an epoch within itself. Even in the course of a brief dream, one experiences youth, old age, and even death. But it is not so. Only the Supreme Consciousness remains as it was forever. You realize it when your mind has ceased of all thoughts, and so on. Vasishtha continued. After listening to these wise words of the king, Karkati became tranquil and her demonical nature left her. She said to them, O wise men, you are both fit to be worshipped by all and served by all. I have been thoroughly awakened by your holy company. One who enjoys the company of enlightened men does not suffer in this world, even as one who holds a candle in his hand does not see darkness anywhere. At the king's request, Karkati became a charming young woman and lived as his guest. So after all this, the king said, why are you roaming around? Stay with us. So she stayed with him. She became a charming young woman and lived as his guest. But every night she resumed her demonical form and consumed the criminals and sinners sent to her by the king. During the day, she continued to be a charming woman. If a charming woman says, can I be with you? Please be careful. In the night she may turn into a demoness and eat you up. I told you this story because I remembered her questions and the king's answers. In a sense, even as the ramifications of the tree with its leaves, flowers, fruits, etc., extend from the seed in which there is no such diversification, the universe of diversity extends from that infinite consciousness which is as small and smaller than a seed. O Rama, by merely listening to my words, you will be enlightened. There is no doubt in this. Know that the universe is arisen from Brahman and goes back to it. Now, once I asked the Creator Brahma to tell me how this universe was first created, and he gave me the following reply. My child, it's only the mind that appears as all this. At the end of the previous epoch, there was cosmic night. As soon as I awoke at the end of the night, I offered my morning prayers and looked around, wishing to create the universe. I beheld the infinite void, which was neither illumined nor dark. In my heart, I saw subtle visions. There in my mind and with my mind, I saw several seemingly independent universes. In them I saw my own counterparts, creators of those universes. In those universes I saw all kinds of beings. Looking at all this, I was puzzled. How is it that I am seeing all this with my mind in the great void? I thought of one of the suns in one of the solar systems and asked him the question. I decided, let me ask one of the suns in one of the solar systems. So this is not the only solar system, there are many systems, solar or non-solar. Need not necessarily be the sun, as you know. The sun replied, "O great one, being the omnipotent creator of all this, you are indeed the Lord. It is the mind alone that appears as all this ceaseless and endless creative activity, which on account of ignorance deludes one into thinking that it is real or unreal. Surely you know the truth, Lord, yet since you commanded me to answer, I will say this. O Lord of Lords, near the holy mountain Kailasha, government is opening up Kailash. Near the holy mountain Kailasha, in a place known as Suvarna Jatha, your sons had established a colony, Brahma sons. In that place there was a holy man known as Indu, descendant of the sage Kashyapa. He and his wife enjoyed every blessing except that they didn't have a child, no offspring. They prayed to Lord Shiva, who granted them a boon. Very soon, after this, the holy man's wife gave birth to 10 brilliant and radiant sons. These boys grew up into young men. They had mastered all the scriptures even when they were barely 7 years of age. After a considerable time, their parents abandoned their bodies and became liberated. The 10 young men were sorely distressed at the loss of their parents. One day, they got together and asked themselves, "Oh brothers, what is the most desirable goal here, which is proper for us to aspire to and which will not lead us to unhappiness? To be a king, to be an emperor, even to be Indra, the god of heaven, these are all trivial. Since even Indra rules heaven just for 1 hour and a half in the Creator's lifespan. Indra is supposed to rule the heavens. From the point of view of Brahma, the Creator's time is only for 1.5 hours. So what is the use of becoming Indra anyway? Therefore we think only the attainment of creatorship is the best of all lordships, because it will not come to an end for a whole yuga, manvantara. Because the creator disappears only after an entire epoch. It's a long time. All the others heartily agreed with this statement. They said to themselves, well then we should soon reach Brahmahood, which is devoid of old age and death. Eldest brother said, "Please do as I tell you. From now on, contemplate as follows. I am Brahma, seated on a full-born lotus." All the brothers thereupon began to meditate in the following manner: I am Brahma, the creator of the universe. The sages, as also Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom, are within me in their personal forms. Heaven is within me with all the celestials. Mountains, continents, oceans, everything is within me. The sun shines within me. Now the creation takes place. Now the creation exists. Now it is time for dissolution. An epoch is over. The night of Brahma is at hand. I have self-knowledge and I am liberated. Meditate this way. Lord, after that, still deeply contemplating their intention to be the creators of the universe, the 10 holy men stood in contemplation. Their bodies had withered away, and whatever was left was consumed by wild beasts, because they were doing tapasya in a lonely part of the Himalayas. standing for years. Their bodies were destroyed, and whatever was left was consumed by the wild beasts. But they continued to stand there in their disembodied state, in their astral bodies, for a long time, till an epoch came to a close. Manvantara ended, and there was the scorching heat of the sun and a terrible cloud burst which destroyed everything. This will happen even on this earth. The sun becomes so close that everything is burnt to ashes. It's moving slowly, but it will take several years, don't worry. The holy men still continue to stand in their disembodied state with the sole intention of becoming creators of the universe. At the dawn of a new creation, these men continue to stand in the same place and in the same manner with the same intention, and they became creators. They were the 10 creators whom you saw, and you saw their universes too. Lord, I am one of the suns that shines in the universe created by them. Then Brahma asked the sun, O sun, when thus the universes have been created by these 10 creators, what need I do? What is there for me to do? Sun replied, you have no wishes nor motives of your own. Naturally, there is no need for you to do anything. What benefit you derive from creating the universe? Creation of the universe is surely a motiveless pastime to you. So, wise men do not desire to do anything, and wise men who do not desire to abandon their action either. They don't want to do anything, but they also act with no intention whatsoever. Lord, the sun continued, mind alone is the creator of the world. Now this will be repeated again and again in Yoga Vasishtha. Mind alone is the creator of the world, and mind alone is the Supreme Person. What is done by the mind is action. What is done by the body is not action. Behold the powers of the mind. One whose consciousness is extroverted experiences pleasure and pain. On the other hand, the yogi whose vision is introverted has no pain or pleasure. In this connection, there is a legend which I shall narrate to you. In the country of Magadha, there was a king named Indradyumna. Indradyumna. Ahalya was his wife. In that place, there was also a handsome young man. There is a qualification for the young man. The country of Magadha, there was a king named Indradyumna. Ahalya was his wife. In that place, there also was a handsome young man of loose morals, whose name was Indra. One day, during a discourse, the queen listened to a story of the seduction of the famed Ahalya by Indra, the king of heaven. As a result, she conceived a great love for the young man Indra. She heard this story that long ago Ahalya was attracted by Indra, the young man, and hearing this, she started getting attracted by this Indra, this young Indra. Ahalya was distraught with the love for Indra, and with the help of one of her maids, managed to have the young man brought to her. From then onwards, Indra and Ahalya used to meet each other in a secret house and enjoy themselves. Not an uncommon story. Ahalya was so fond of Indra that she saw him everywhere The very thought of him made her face radiant. As their love grew, their relationship became public and it reached the king's ears. The irate king, in an effort to break this relationship, punished them in numerous ways. They were immersed in ice cold water. They were fried in boiling oil. They were tied to the legs of an elephant and whipped. Indra said to the king laughingly, "O king, the entire universe to me is nothing but my beloved. So it is Ahalya. Hence we are unaffected by all these earth. And I am only mind. Mind alone is the individual. We can punish the body, but you cannot punish the mind or bring about a least change in it. If the mind is fully saturated with something, whatever happens to the body does not affect the mind. The mind is unaffected even by boons and curses, even as the firmly established mountain is not moved by the horns of a little beast. The body does not create the mind, but the mind creates the body. The mind alone is the seed for the body. When the tree dies, the seed does not. But when the seed perishes, the tree dies. If the body perishes, the mind can create other bodies for itself. So Indra suddenly turned to Vedanta. Lord the king thereupon approached the sage Bharata and pleaded that he should punish the recalcitrant couple by cursing them. And the sage announced a curse upon the couple. However, they said to the sage and to the king, "Alas, you are both of little understanding. By thus cursing us, you have squandered the merit acquired by your tapasya. Your curse will surely destroy our bodies, but we shall lose nothing by that. No one can destroy the minds of others." However, the sage's curse destroyed their bodies, and on leaving their bodies, they were born together as animals, then as birds, then as human couple in a holy family. Till now, on account of the total love for each other, they are born together as husband and wife. Even the trees of the forest were inspired and infected by the supreme love and devotion of this couple. Even the sage's curse could not bring about the mutation of their minds. Lord, in your own consciousness, create the world as you like. In truth, the infinite consciousness, the mind, which is one's own consciousness, and the infinite space are all one substance pervaded by the infinite consciousness. Therefore, regardless of what young men have created, you can create as many worlds as you like. Brahma said to Vasishtha, "Having listened to this advice of the sun, I immediately began to create the first world as a natural expression of my being." So that's how the first creation takes place according to the Yoga Vasishtha. There's a big lecture on space. Read the last para. The absolute Brahman is omnipotent and there is nothing which is outside of it. It is his own power or energy that pervades all things. In embodied beings, it is the Chit Shakti, the power of consciousness. He is the motion in the air, stability in the earth, void in the space. As the power of consciousness, I am in created beings. Yet all this is nothing but the power of the absolute Brahman. Delusion, craving, greed and attachment from that point are non-existent. How can they exist when there is no duality? When bondage is not existent, surely liberation also cannot exist. Because if you need to be liberated, you need to be bound. In your true nature, you are not even bound, so why liberate? To illustrate this, there is an interesting story. Listen to me. A young boy asked his nanny to tell him a story. And the nanny told him the following story, to which the boy listened with great attention. This is the story that the nanny told the boy. Once upon a time, like all stories, once upon a time, in a city which did not exist, once upon a time, in a city which did not exist, there were three princes who were brave and happy. Of them, two were unborn, and the third had not been conceived. This is what the nanny told. Unfortunately, all their relatives died. The princes left their native city to go elsewhere. Very soon, unable to bear the heat of the sun, they fell into a swoon, and their feet were burnt by the hot sand. The tips of grass pierced them. They reached the shade of 3 trees, of which 2 did not exist, and the third had not even been planted. After resting there for some time, ouch! After resting there for some time and eating the fruits of those trees that did not exist, they proceeded further. They reached the banks of 3 rivers. Of them, 2 were dry, and in the third there was no water. The princes had a refreshing bath and they quenched their thirst in them. Then they reached a huge city which was about to be built. Entering it, they found 3 palaces of exceeding beauty. Of them, 2 had not been built at all, and the third had no walls. They entered the palaces and found 3 golden plates. 3 golden plates. 2 of them had been broken into 2, and the third had been pulverized. They took hold of the one which had been pulverized. They took 99 minus 1, 100 grams of rice and cooked it. They took 99 minus 1. 99 minus 100 grams of rice and cooked it. And they made those hard rounds that you brought to them. They then invited 3 holy men to be their guests. Of them, 2 had no body and the third had no mouth. After these holy men had eaten their food, how do you eat without them? Anyway, the 3 princes partook of the rest of the food that was cooked. They were greatly pleased. Thus, they lived in the city for a long time, in peace and joy. My child, this is an extremely beautiful legend. Pray remember this always, and you will grow up to be a learned man. O Rama, when the little boy heard this, he was thrilled. What is known as the creation of the world is no more real than this story of the young boy. The world is nothing but pure hallucination. It is nothing more than an idea. In the infinite consciousness, the idea of creation rose. We don't know why. And this is what it is. Oh Rama, this world is nothing more than an idea. All the objects of consciousness in the world are just an idea. Reject the error of ideation and be free of ideas. Remain rooted in truth and attain peace. Vasishtha continued, only a fool, not a wise man, is deluded by his own ideas. It is the fool who thinks that the imperishable is perishable and gets deluded. Egotism is but an idea based on a false association of the self with the physical elements. When one alone exists in all this as the infinite consciousness, what is this egotism? It does not exist. In fact, this egotism does not exist any more than water exists in a mirage. Therefore, O Rama, abandon your imperfect vision which is not based on fact. Rest in the perfect vision which is of the nature of bliss and which is based on truth. Abandon your latent tendencies, even as a bird wishing to fly into the sky breaks out of its shell. Born of ignorance, these tendencies are hard to destroy and they give birth to endless sorrows. This is the supreme goal, Rama, and strive for this. When he said that, another day came to a close. Now, time as changing seasons is able indirectly to bring about changes in the trees and plants. Even so, the mind makes one thing appear to be another by its powers of thought and ideas. Therefore, even time and space and all the things are under the control of the mind, depending upon its intensity or dullness, and upon the size, big or small, of the object created or influenced. The mind does what is to be done with some delay or much later. It is not incapable of doing anything whatsoever. O Rama, listen to another interesting legend. In a country known as Uttara Pandava, in whose forests sages dwell, and whose villages were beautiful and prosperous, there reigned a king known as Lavana, who was a descendant of the famous King Harishchandra. He was righteous, noble, chivalrous, charitable, and in every way a worthy king. His enemies had all been conquered, and their followers could not even think of him without becoming feverish with anxiety. You want to put on the heat, this thing cooler and see if they can hear me? Try. Because I can't bear to see this. Now can you hear me? You can switch it off if you can do little tapasya. Is that okay? Too much to ask? Okay. So, thank you. In a country known as Uttara Pandava, in whose forest sages dwell, and whose villages were beautiful and prosperous, there reigned a king known as Lavana, who was a descendant of the famous king Harishchandra. Okay. He was righteous, noble, chivalrous, charitable, and in every way a worthy king. His enemies had all been conquered, and their followers could not even think of him without becoming feverish with anxiety. His enemies. One day, this king went to his court and ascended the throne. After all the ministers and others had paid their homage to him, a juggler entered the court, a magician, and saluted him. Is that clear, the setting? This great king who was a conqueror and who had conquered everything, and people thought of him with fear, his enemies, and he had everything. And in that place dwelt many sages, beautiful villages and so on, ideal setup. There was no pollution. One day, this king went to his court and ascended the throne. After all the ministers and others had paid homage to him, a juggler entered the court and saluted him. He said to the king, "I will show you something wonderful, okay?" As he waved a bunch of peacock feathers, there entered into the court a cavalier leading an exquisitely beautiful horse. He requested the king to accept it as a gift. The juggler requested the king to ride the horse and roam freely throughout the world. The king also saw the horse. Thereupon, the king closed his eyes and sat motionless. Seeing this, everyone assembled in the court became silent. Absolute peace reigned in the court, as no one dared to disturb the king's peace. Rama, after some time, the king opened his eyes and began to tremble as if in fear. As he was about to fall down, the ministers supported him. Dismayed to see them, the king asked, "Who are you? And what are you doing to me?" The worried minister said to him, "Lord, you are a mighty king of great wisdom, and yet this delusion has overpowered you. What has happened to your mind? Only they who are attached to the little objects of this world and false relationships of wife, children, etc. are subject to mental aberrations, not one like you, devoted to the Supreme. Moreover, only he who has not cultivated wisdom is adversely affected by spells and drugs, and not whose mind is fully developed." Hearing this, the king partly regained his composure. Though upon looking at the juggler, he trembled as if in fear, he seemed to have regained his composure. Then he looked at the juggler and started shivering again and said, "O magician, what have you done to me? You have spread a net of illusion over me. Truly, even the wise are overpowered by the jugglery of Maya. Even as though I am still in this body, within a short period I experienced wonderful hallucinations." Turning to the members of the court, the king recounted his experiences during the previous hour. Turning to the members of the court, the king recounted his experiences during the previous hour. Arey Subhash, jaldi jao yaar. As soon as I saw this juggler wave his bundle of peacock feathers, I jumped on the horse which stood in front of me and experienced a slight mental delusion. Then I went away on a hunting expedition. The horse led me into an arid desert where nothing lived and nothing grew. There was no water, it was bitterly cold, I experienced great grief. I spent the whole day there. Later, riding that horse again, I crossed the desert and reached another which was less dreadful. I rested under a tree. The horse ran away. I rested for some time and the sun set. Frightened, I hid myself in a bush. The night was longer than a manvantara, an epoch. The day dawned. The sun rose. Little later, I saw a dark girl clad in black clothes carrying a plateful of food. I approached her and begged for food. I was hungry. She ignored me and I pursued her. At last she said, I shall give you food if you consent to marry me. I consented. Food. Now you know how to get somebody to marry you. Give no food and then walk around in circles with food in your hand. Now, at last she said, I shall give you food if you consent to marry me. I consented. Survival was the first and foremost consideration then. She gave me food and later introduced me to her father, who was even more dreadful to look at. Soon the three of us reached their village, which was flowing with blood and flesh. I was introduced to all as the girl's husband. I was treated by them with great respect. They entertained me with dreadful stories which were a source of pain. Adventures, how they killed the deer and cut it and so on. And here this fellow, at a diabolical ceremony, I got married to that girl. Very soon, I became a member of the primitive tribe. My wife gave birth to a daughter, the source of more unhappiness to me. Course of time, 3 more babies arrived. I had become a family man in that tribe. I spent many years among this tribe, suffering the agonies of a family man with a wife and children to feed and to protect. I cut firewood and often I had to sleep under a tree at night. When the weather became cold, I hid myself in a bush in order to keep warm. Pork was my staple diet. I think they brought it from Coorg. Time rolled on and I became old. I began to trade in meat. I took the meat to the villages on the Vindhya mountains and sold the best part of it there. What has happened to a king, a great king? What could not be sold at a decent profit, I cut into bits and dried in a terribly filthy place. When I was afflicted with hunger, I would often fight with others in the tribe for a piece of meat to eat. My body had become as black and dusty as soot. Thus engaged in sinful activities, my mind had also become inclined towards sin. Good thoughts and feelings took leave of me. My heart shed all compassion, even as a snake sheds its slough. With nets and other traps and weapons, I caused untold hardship to birds and animals. Clad only in a loincloth, I endured every inclemency of the weather. I spent 7 years there. Bound by the ropes of evil tendencies, I grew wild with anger and used abusive words, wept in misfortunes and ate rotten food. Thus I lived for a long time in that place. I drifted like a dry leaf in the wind, as if my only mission in life was eating. There was drought in the land. The air was so hot that it seemed to waft sparks of flame. The forest caught fire. Only ashes remained. People were dying of hunger. People chased after mirages thinking there was water. They mistook pebbles to be balls of meat and began to chew on them. Some had even begun to eat corpses. Some, while doing so, even chewed their own fingers that had been soaked in the blood of these dead bodies. Such was their demented state of starvation. What was once a flourishing forest had been transferred into a huge crematorium. What was once a pleasure grove resounded with agonized cries of dying. Thus afflicted by famine, many people left the country and migrated elsewhere. Some others, deeply attached to their wife and children, perished in that land. Some others were killed by wild animals. I too left the country to go away along with my wife and children. At the border of the country, I found a cool shade of a tree tempting, and after putting down the little children I was carrying on my shoulders, I rested under that tree for a long time. The youngest of my children was quite small and innocent, and therefore was the dearest to my heart. With tears in his eyes, he demanded food. Although I told him there was no meat to eat, his childish innocence, he persisted in his demand, unable to bear his hunger. I said to him in despair, "All right, eat my flesh." And this innocent child, without thinking, said, "Give me." I was moved by the attachment and the pity. I saw the child was unable to endure the pangs of hunger anymore. I decided the best way to end all these miseries was to end my life. I raised a fire, funeral fire, with the help of timber I found nearby. And as I ascended that fire, I shuddered, and I found myself in this court, being greeted and hailed by all of you. Everything was going to end. I climbed the fire. I was about to end my life. Suddenly I shuddered and woke up, and here you were saying, "Oh, great king." I was back in court. As the king said this, the juggler vanished. Ministers said, "Lord, he cannot be a juggler." For he was not interested in money or in a reward. Surely some divine entity wished to demonstrate to you and to all of us the power of cosmic illusion. From all this it is clear that this world appearance is nothing but the play of the mind. The mind itself is but the play of the omnipotent infinite being. The mind is able to fool even men of great wisdom. Else, where is the king who is well versed in all branches of learning? And where is this bewildering delusion? Surely this is not a juggler's trick. For a juggler performs for material gain. It is really the power of illusion. Here the juggler vanished without looking for a reward. Vasishtha said, "Rama, I was there in that court at that time, and so I know all this firsthand. In this manner, the mind veils the real nature of the self and creates an illusory appearance with many branches, flowers and fruits. Destroy this illusion by wisdom and rest in peace." The impure mind sees a ghost where there is just a post and pollutes all relationship, creating suspicion among friends and making enemies of them, even as a drunken man sees the world is revolving around him. A distressed mind turns food into poison and causes disease and death. The impure mind laden with tendencies is the cause for delusions, manias and phobias. One should strive to uproot these and discard them. What is man but the mind? Mind is the whole world, mind is the atmosphere, mind is the sky, mind is the earth, mind is the wind, and mind is great. Only he whose mind is foolish is called a fool. When the body loses its intelligence, the corpse is not called foolish. Mind decides the length of time. The King Lavana experienced the period of less than an hour as if extended for a lifetime. What is more mysterious, Rama, than that the mind is able to wield the omnipresent, pure, eternal, infinite consciousness, making you confuse it with this inert physical body? He who does not allow his mind to roam in objects of pleasure is able to master it. Even as one who is born to a pillar does not move, the mind of a noble person does not move from reality. He alone is a human being. Others are worms. He attains to the Supreme Being by constant meditation. I think we should stop today. No, tomorrow morning I will do the rest. I am afraid there is Suchika walking in the room. I suddenly come, enter my... Before we end, the day after his hallucinatory experience, King Lavana, you know King Lavana by now, not Ravana, Lavana. He said to himself, I should actually go to those places that I saw in the vision. Perhaps they exist in reality. Immediately he set out with his retinue and proceeded in a southern direction. Soon he came across the very scenes of his vision and the type of people whom he had seen. He met the very people who he knew during his existence as a tribesman. He saw his own children, destitute children. He saw an old woman who was weeping and screaming in agony, saying, "Oh my beloved husband, where have you gone, leaving us all here? I have lost my beautiful daughter who had an extraordinary stroke of luck to obtain a handsome king for her husband. Where have all they gone? Alas, I have lost all of them." The king approached her, consoled her, and learned from her that she was indeed the mother of his tribal wife. Out of compassion, he gave them enough wealth to meet their needs and to help them out of the drought that had stricken the whole countryside. He dwelt among them for some time and then returned to the palace. The next morning, the king asked me to explain the mystery and was fully satisfied with my answer. "O Rama," so Rama said, "O sage, this is indeed puzzling. How can that which was seen in a dream or as a hallucination be also experienced in reality in the waking state by the king? How is this possible?" Vasishtha answered, "O Rama, all this is ignorance. The notions of near, far, moment, eternity, they are all hallucinations. In ignorance, the real appears to be unreal and the unreal appears to be real. The individualized consciousness perceives what it thinks it perceives on account of its conditioning. On account of ignorance, when the notion of egotism arises, at this very moment the delusion of a beginning and a middle and an end also arrives. One who is thus deluded thinks that he is an animal and experiences all this. All this happens on account of an accidental coincidence. Just as a crow flies towards a coconut palm, as it alights on the tree, a fruit falls down, and the human mind weaves a complete logical theory to it, saying that the crow sat on the tree and the coconut fell down. The crow sitting on the tree and the coconut falling has no link to each other. It's created by the mind. Similarly, by pure coincidence and in ignorance, the unreal seems to be real. In his hypnotic state, King Lavana obviously saw reflected in his own consciousness the marriage of a prince with a tribal woman, etc. Now, this is very true, not only in Yoga Vasishtha, but even otherwise. If you are put into a hypnotic trance, suppose, and in the hypnotic trance, you are told that you are a king in Rajasthan, in the hypnotic trance, and you are living in Rajasthan. You have a pagadi on your head, you are strutting around. You experience all that is happening there in the hypnotic trance. A hypnotic trance can be done by anybody who knows how to hypnotize. Now there is clinical hypnosis, used to extract teeth and so on, and there are hypnotists who can do that. So then this person believes all that. He is told that in your past birth you are from Rajasthan. He is in a hypnotic trance. When he comes back, he finds that he is somewhere else. There is nobody there. He is somebody else. But then he believes somewhere deep down that he was there before. Right? Now this is what happens in what is so-called past life regression. That you are in a hypnotic trance, you are made to believe that you are something. True old past life understanding comes to a yogi when he has cleared his mind of all connection, and it cannot be induced by somebody, it has to be done by yourself. Right? In a hypnotic trance you can be made to think anything, that in your past life you were Tadaka, Bhayankari and so on. Or in your past life you screwed somebody's ear, so you are feeling the pain now in the left ear. So it's the mind again. It's the mind that creates and the mind that destroys. Now how do we reach the essence of one's being? When the mind is absolutely clear of all disturbances, when all the vrittis of the chitta are removed, then this mind sees both that and this as an illusion. So actually we think we are in the waking state, but we are in a hypnotic state. Somebody has hypnotized, we don't know who or what or why. And in that hypnotic state, we move around saying, I am M, you are Christine, I am Christine, and so on and so forth. But when that hypnotic trance is gone and you wake up, you know who you actually are, which is an essence of the being called the Supreme Brahman. This is the substance of Yoga Vasishtha. So I am saying already, since we live in an illusion, in a hypnotic trance, you won't believe it now. In a hypnotic trance, nobody will believe that it is a trance. Should we have another hypnotic trance? And should we superimpose more nonsensical things onto what already exists? Isn't this enough for us? Shouldn't we swim and come out of this mess? Shouldn't we find our true self? This is the message of all the great scriptures which have come down to us, right from the Upanishad downwards, that there is one supreme reality. You may don't want to call it Brahman, it's all right. And these individual so-called beings are hallucinations. That doesn't mean, it's not belittling yourself, it's actually increasing your grandeur. You are not this little thing that is suffering with, oh, this lady didn't talk to me today, so I am feeling bad. The lady didn't talk to you, you are free. Why are you worried? No. Huh? So this, because in true essence, I know if it is a lady, it could be a man. In true essence, to understand that in our true essence, we are that calm, blissful consciousness, searching for which we are wandering around, looking here and there, thinking perhaps it is available here, not finding it in the end. This minute it can be found if one reverses the search and says, no, this is what it is. I will not be taken for a ride by this delusion anymore. I don't want to remain in the state of hypnosis. I want to wake up and see the reality. This is the essence of the Yoga Vasishtha, but approached in different ways. Since we have 8 more days, I will go through each part in my own way, reading what is connected together so that you can understand better. The next story that we are going to read before that, Vasishtha says to Rama, Rama, the only way to cross the formidable ocean of world appearance, only way is to master the senses. No other effort is of any use. When one is equipped with the wisdom gained by the study of the scriptures and the company of sages and has the senses under control, then one realizes the utter non-existence of all objects of perception. Mind alone is all this. That is healed. This jugglery of world appearance is also healed. Rama said, "O holy sage, kindly tell me, how does this enormous universe exist in the mind?" How does this enormous universe you are describing, how can it exist in the mind? Because from normal appearance, the mind is a small thing. Mind is not, but that's what we think. Vasishtha replied, "O Rama, it is like the universe is created by the Brahmana boys. Again, it is like the hallucinations suffered by King Lavana. Here is another illustration. It is the story of the sage Sukra, which I shall presently narrate to you." Shall we do it now or tomorrow? Some are saying now. Thank God, I thought you were all tired. Okay. Long time ago, sage Bhrigu was performing intense tapasya, penance, on the peak of a mountain. His son Sukra was a young man at that time. While the father sat motionless in meditation, the young son attended to his needs. One day this young man beheld in the sky a beautiful flying nymph. Finished. Till now he was looking after the father who was sitting motionless in meditation. Who was the father? Bhrigu. And the son was Sukra. Then one day he looked up and saw a beautiful nymph flying. His mind was disturbed with a desire for her. So was her mind disturbed when she saw the radiant young Sukra. Intensely overcome by desire for the nymph, Sukra closed his eyes and mentally pursued her with his mind. It's common occurrence, right? We all know that. Need not Sukra. All Sukra, Hikra, Bakra, all do this. So with his mind, he started pursuing the nymph. Sukra closed his eyes and then he found that he had reached heaven with his mind. There he saw the radiant celestial beings, gods and their consorts. the celestial elephant and the horses. He saw the creator Brahma himself, as also other deities who govern this universe. He saw the siddhas, the perfected beings. He listened to the celestial music. He visited the celestial gardens in heaven. Finally, he saw the king of heaven, Indra himself, seated in all his majesty, waited upon by incomparably beautiful nymphs. He saluted Indra. Indra got up from his throne and greeted the young sage Sukra and begged him to stay in heaven for a long time. Now Sukra also agreed. Why? This nymph has also gone there. So he stayed for some time. Now Sukra had completely forgotten his previous identity. After spending some time in the court of Indra, Sukra roamed the heavens and soon discovered the whereabouts of the nymph he had seen. When they looked at each other, they were overcome by desire for each other. For wish fulfillment is the characteristic of heaven. That's why people go to heaven, all wishes are fulfilled. Sukra wished for the darkness of the night to envelop the pleasure garden where he met the nymph. Sukra wished that everything become dark, and since heaven wishes are fulfilled, it became dark. Sukra then entered the beautiful rest house in that garden. He was just putting off the lights, and the nymph followed. She pleaded, the nymph pleaded, "Great one, I am tormented by the desire for you. Only the dull-witted deride love, not the wise ones deride. Even the Lord of the three worlds, Lordship of the three worlds, is nothing in comparison to the delight of the company of the loved one. Hence pray, give me shelter in your heart." So saying, she collapsed on his chest. Nymphs have a wonderful way of catching young men. They collapse on the chest. Sukra spent a long time with that nymph, roaming at will in heaven. He lived with that nymph for a period equal to 8 world cycles, which is quite a long time. After this length of time, as if his merit had been exhausted, Sukra fell from heaven along with that nymph. When their subtle bodies fell on earth, they became dewdrops which entered food grains, which were eaten by a holy Brahmana, and from whose his wife he received their essence, and Sukra became their son. It's not as if he fell and the astral body entered the mother's womb. He fell and became a dewdrop, and grains grew on it, and the great sages ate the grains, and from there he was born as their son. Sukra became their son. He grew up there. What happened to the nymph? Nymph had become a female deer. I mean, D-E-E-R, deer. Not dove deer, the female deer. So, the nymph had become a female deer, and Sukra begot through her a human child. That is great genetic engineering. He became greatly attached to his son. Worries and anxieties caused by his child soon made Sukra old, and he died longing for pleasures. Because of his longing for pleasures when he died, he became the ruler of a kingdom in the next birth. And when he became a king, he died to that embodiment, longing for life of austerity and holiness. He had seen enough of money. In the next birth he became a holy man. Then after passing from one embodiment to another, and enduring all manner of destinies, Sukra practiced austerity, standing firm on the bank of the river. Thus contemplating, while seated in front of his father, Sukra spent a long time. His body became extremely emaciated. In the meantime, the restless mind created scene after scene of successive lifespans, birth and death, ascent to heaven, descent to earth, and the peaceful life of a hermit. He was so immersed in these that he regarded them as truth. The body had been reduced to skin and bone, for it had been assailed by the inclemencies of every type of weather. It appeared terribly frightening even to look at. Yet it was not consumed by carnivorous beasts, as it stood right in front of sage Bhrigu, who was engaged in deep meditation. And as Sukra himself had endowed it with psychic strength to the practice of yoga. After 100 celestial years of contemplation, the sage Bhrigu got up from his seat. He did not see his son Sukra in front of him, but he saw the dried up body. The body up, where did all this start? He was looking after his father, who was meditating. He looked up and saw the nymph. The body appeared hideous, and a board of worms which dwelling in the eye sockets had multiplied very fast. Deeply concerned with what he saw and without really reflecting over the natural course of events, Bhrigu was filled with rage and resolved to curse time for causing the untimely death of his son. Time. What is time? Time or death instantly approached the sage in physical form. Time had a sword in one hand and a noose in the other. He had impenetrable armor with 6 arms and 6 faces. He was surrounded by a host of his servants and messengers. He was radiant with the flames of destruction that emanated from his body and from the weapons he held in his hands. What are the weapons? One sword and a noose. Calmly and in unfaltering voice, Time addressed Bhrigu. O sage, how is it that such a wise sage as you are contemplates such unworthy conduct? Wise men are not upset even when they are offended. Yet you have lost your balance of mind, even though no one has offended you. You are indeed an adorable person, and I am one of those who strictly adhere to the appropriate mode of behavior. Hence I salute you, not with any other motive. Do not waste your merit in useless exhibition of your power of cursing. Know that I am unaffected even by the fires of cosmic dissolution. How childish of you that you hope to destroy me by your curse. I am time. I have destroyed countless beings. Even the gods who preside over this universe come under my command. Holy One, I am the consumer and you are our food. This indeed is ordained by nature. This relationship is not based on mutual likes or dislikes. Fire, by its very nature, flames upward, and water naturally flows down. Food seeks the consumer, and created objects seek their end. This is how it has been ordained by the Lord. In the self of all, the self dwells inside. In purified vision, there is neither a doer nor an enjoyer, but to the unpurified vision, there is a division between the doer and what is being done. You are indeed a knower of truth, and you know that there is neither doership nor non-doership here. Creatures come and go like flowers on a tree. Their causation is not else than conjecture. All these are attributed to time. This can be considered real or unreal. For when the surface of the lake is agitated, the reflection of the moon seems to be agitated. This can be considered both true and false. So do not give way to anger, O sage. This is surely the path to disaster, for what will be, will be. Whatever will be, will be. Te sara sara. Realize this truth. We are not swayed by vanity. We are naturally inclined to the fulfillment of our natural functions. Such indeed is the nature of the wise one. What has to be done by the wise, remaining egoless and unselfish, as if in deep sleep. Don't violate this. Where is your wisdom, your greatness, your moral courage, O sage? You know the path to blessedness, so don't act like a fool. Surely you know that the ripe fruit falls to the ground. Ignoring this, why do you think of cursing me? And so on. Vasishtha continued. Encouraged by time, it's none other than death, Yama. The sage Vrigu thereupon entered into the eye of wisdom in order to behold the life of his son. In an instant he saw his own intelligence, the entire story of his son's transmigration. Wonderstruck at what he saw, he re-entered his own body. Completely devoid of all attachment to his son, Bhrigu said, Lord, you are indeed the knower of the past, present and the future. Surely all this is within you, and only you know the true form of this phantom created by the imaginations of mine. This son of mine is not dead. Yet taking him to be dead, I became agitated. I thought that my son had been taken away from me before his time arrived. It was a mistake. By your grace, I have seen my son again, and I realized that the mind alone is the body. It is the mind that conjures up this world vision. That's it. Come, let us go to where your son is engaged in tapasya. Saying this, Yama caught hold of Bhrigu and led him away. While the sage Vasishtha said this, the 8th day came to a close and the assembly dispersed. Can we disperse now? They are moving slowly. Okay. Just looking what to be done tomorrow. Are you bored or are you enjoying it? Are you enjoying it or are you frightened of it? Does it sound like breaking all images? Does it sound like throwing everything to the winds? And yet you're enjoying it. No. I know why, because I think deep down in every one of you who are sitting here, I think, I may be wrong, there's a deep desire for liberation. Must be. Otherwise, who will patiently sit and listen to this stuff? Deep down there must be this desire, even if one doesn't know the definition of liberation. Must be this thing about I want to get out of the cage. I want to be free. Otherwise nobody will listen. So who knows what past words you all had? God knows. Okay, thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.